Yeah. Okay. So, for those of you who haven't been here, we've been going through this book by Shyla Catherine called Beyond Distraction. And she's talking about the Buddha's teachings found in the Middle Length Sayings, number 20, on the 5 ways to let go of the thoughts that assail our mind. When we sit down in meditation and we're trying to still our mind, we get all these thoughts that come in. And so in the Middle Length Sayings, number 20, the Buddha gives us 5 methods. And so we've already covered 4. So those of you who are new, they're recorded. So you can just go to the Tuesday night talks, and it's called How to Focus the Mind. It's a playlist, How to Focus the Mind. And the first 4 talks are up there. So I'm discussing talk number 5, or sorry, method number 5. So number 1 is to replace the thought. Number 2 is to look at the danger of it. Number 3 is just to try and forget about it or distract yourself in some way. The 4th way is to look beneath the thought to what's the cause of this thought coming up. And then number 5, I will read you the words of the Buddha. And I might turn this on with my red glasses. I feel almost blind. Okay, so method number 5, to let go of thoughts. When, with their teeth clenched and their tongue pressed against the roof of the mouth, one beats down, constrains, crushes mind with mind, then any evil, unwholesome thoughts connected with desire, with hate, and with delusion are abandoned in them and subside. With the abandoning of these thoughts, one's mind becomes steadied internally, quieted, brought to singleness, and concentrated. So this is a last-ditch effort. It's not something to be used very, very often. As Ajahn Brahm likes to say, the Buddha's teaching us to use wisdom power, not willpower, to deal with things that arise in life. I mean, willpower, it only lasts for so long, and then you get exhausted, and then you're just all into your bad habits again. So we want to use wisdom power. So this number 5, method number 5, is all about willpower. And so you're only going to use it in emergency situations. So before reading Shyla's book, I was sort of only aware of one situation, and that was mostly when we're about to say something that's not good. You know, like you're probably gonna like put your job on the line or ruin a friendship or really cause problems in a relationship or whatever. And that's when you're gonna, you know, like clamp your teeth together, stick your tongue, push it up on the roof of your mouth, just sort of bear down and don't let those angry words or whatever come out and then destroy a relationship or a job or whatever. So that was the only way that I was sort of thinking of that one would use this, and then try and get out of the situation to get calmed down, is, you know, so you can think more clearly. But anyway, Shyla is saying that there are other situations where we can use this. And I think in the speech one, if you're trying to stop speech, what the Buddha said is really works, you know, just clamping the teeth and lips and pushing with the tongue so you can't say anything. But I guess she takes it in a more metaphorical way. And if you're about to do something harmful, maybe, you know, particularly say addictive behaviors, and you've tried all the other methods and they're not working, then you can just sort of do a really firm no, like stop, and just, you know, hold yourself tightly so that you don't engage in the addictive behavior or whatever. So I'm going to read a couple of passages from her book here. So this is giving an example of somebody who was addicted to online chess, playing on the computer and playing chess. Yeah, 160. I was obsessed with playing online chess, and I could play it for hours on end. And I was not only engrossed in the game while playing it, but chess games and puzzles frequently distracted me during my meditation. The first 4 strategies for removing distracting thoughts did not seem to be effective at first glance. The classic antidotes didn't seem to apply. There was neither hatred to replace with loving kindness, nor greed to replace with generosity. At first, I didn't see any danger in my love of chess. I considered chess to be a pleasant, harmless pastime. But I began to notice that it was a major distraction during meditation. And indulging this distraction weakened my commitment to liberation. I tried to withdraw my interest from thoughts of chess games, but my attachment was too strong. I felt flushed with pride each time I won a game, and I craved for that feeling. While working through the 4 strategies didn't overcome the immediate distraction, they helped strengthen my aspiration to free my mind. I began to view chess as a defilement. Perhaps for other people, chess can be an innocent and intriguing game, but my obsession with it made it a problem. By perceiving it as a defilement, I gained a clear sense of purpose and finally said no to all forms of chess. I stopped playing, thinking, studying, and reading about chess. I removed chess from my life. This decision felt powerful. At first, I longed for the pleasures of the game, but that longing was quenched by reflecting on my priorities. Soon enough, though, those distracting thoughts disappeared, and the sense of self that thrived on those addictions no longer controlled my decisions. So there's an example of how to use it in other situations, rather than just stopping bad speech from coming out. Okay, I'm going to 165. So that's it for number 5. We've covered now all the 5 steps. And so she's got a chapter here where she sort of talks about putting them all together. And she really recommends that we follow like the way the Buddha taught, like you always apply step, strategy number 1. When you have a thought, first of all, bring up strategy number 1. And then only if that doesn't work, you bring up strategy 2. And then only if that doesn't work, up 3. And only if that doesn't work, 4. And then finally, in emergency situations only, and not, hopefully not very often, number 5. But she's suggesting that once you've done that and once you've learned them, that maybe you can play around with the order and you might be able to immediately, like knowing yourself well, you might know, okay, strategy 1 and 2 aren't going to work with this. I'm just going to go right to strategy 3 or right to strategy 4. So I'll read you her little paragraph here. By following the sequence step by step, you lay a reliable foundation for success. Systematic practice avoids the pitfalls that might occur if an overly eager practitioner were to skip the initial strategies in favor of later strategies in the series. The earlier strategies develop skills, knowledge, and maturity that help one to successfully apply the later strategies. Okay, then I'm going to 167. So what she gives here now is an example of somebody who had an anger. There was a situation that caused anger in him. And he uses all the different strategies and jumps around. So this is an example of how someone can be sort of more fluid about using the 5 strategies. So this is the person who gets triggered into anger speaking. When I see that my mind is inclined toward anger, I often use replacing, which is strategy 1. I may reflect on my partner's positive qualities, or I may intensify my mindfulness by applying a mental note every second or two to connect with whatever is in my awareness. If anger lingers while I'm using the mental noting technique, I will note it as anger. I find that this practice usually prevents my mind from obsessing on angry thoughts, and they eventually dissipate. To increase my dedication to eliminating this thought pattern, I reflect on the dangers. That's strategy 2. I remember painful results from previous occasions when I indulged the anger. I also remember positive outcomes from times when I've let go of the anger. Reflecting on the danger does not usually stop this thought pattern, but inspires me to continue to work with replacing strategy 1 or ignoring strategy 3. I can sometimes prevent anger from arising by reminding myself that her arguments with other people are not my business. Remember, that was part of strategy 3. None of my business. Let it go. It helps that we have agreed that I am not obliged to participate, take sides, mediate the dispute, suggest compromises, or serve as a peacemaker in the family. Remembering that it is not my business usually is effective at preventing or dispelling this angry reaction. But when I hear yelling, the loud voices attract my attention. Then I might busy myself by doing something else. So that's strategy 3. Remove myself from the room. Also strategy 3. Or focus my attention on physical sensations that arise as I hear their voices. So that's replacing strategy 1. When I am calm enough and I am in a place that feels private and safe, I reflect, which is strategy 4. I have become aware that these arguments trigger memories from my early childhood of chaos, helplessness, and fear. When I realize that the underpinnings of my anger toward my partner actually have nothing to do with her, my belief in those thoughts diminishes, and faith in the rightness of abandoning anger increases. As I investigate, sometimes I sense how my intense reaction reinforces notions about who I am in this relationship and the kind of person I am in the world. My reactions create a story about me. It is a separate story from the present conflicts that they are arguing about. I have seen that when I invest in this self-story, I feel disconnected, isolated, and unable to experience deeper intimacy. But when I don't invest energy in the self-story, this reactive anger tends to fade away, and soon enough, the volume of their voices quiets down too. Their arguments rarely last very long, but my anger and fear can last much longer than their arguments if I am not diligent. Over time, I have come to understand this anger and learned to soften its impact on my mind and relationships. But my reactivity has not completely ended. Sometimes the arguments occur in a busy situation, and I just don't have the time or mental bandwidth to systematically apply the first 4 strategies. But if I can catch it quickly, a brief recollection of my commitment to abandon this harmful pattern, combined with a firm statement to myself, no, stop, can be remarkably effective. So that's strategy number 5, the one we just did tonight. Because I have practiced the previous 4 strategies and developed faith that stopping is the right thing to do, Just reminding myself to stop can be enough to prevent anger from gaining momentum. When anger is not agitating my mind, concentration develops more readily in my daily meditation practice. When my mind is concentrated, I experience a wonderful quality of pleasure. It is a subtle sense of contentment and enthusiasm. I sense my mind saturated with calm and equally eager to understand. At these times, my desire for freedom is strong, and it also seems possible. This calm enthusiasm energizes my commitment to continue to practice. And now there's a comment here by Shyla Catherine. As this student has discovered, once you have become skilled in these strategies for replacing, examining, ignoring, investigating, and resolving, it will not always be necessary to adhere to the traditional order. This system is flexible, and while it is important to approach the strategies in order in the beginning, you will eventually be able to intuit which approach will effectively counter your current distraction. Your understanding will inform and shape the skillfulness in your effort. Okay, so that was all I wanted to say about strategy 5, but I just want to take a moment and put this teaching in the context of the whole gradual training. So, okay. So the Buddhist teaching is, the whole of the teaching is sort of called the gradual training. And the very first part we have to start with is generosity and morality. That's an absolute baseline. We can't build anything further in our practice unless we have that as a baseline, generosity and morality. And then on top of that, we have contentment. And then we have what we were talking about just now, which is dealing with the hindrances. So when we're trying to still our mind, focus our mind, and then we've got all these thoughts happening, either thoughts of desire or thoughts of aversion or just confusion, these are called hindrances. And so then this is a huge, huge, huge part of our practice is dealing with these hindrances. Then once they're settled down, then we can get on with the business of quieting, stilling the mind. And at the maximum of stilling the mind is called the jhana states. And then when we emerge from those jhana states, our mind is in a really beautiful state of clarity and mindfulness. And then this is where we can have insights about the reality of life, about the 3 characteristics of everything, the impermanence of everything, the inherent unsatisfactoriness, and the non-self nature of things. And this is what leads to awakening, liberation, enlightenment, nibbana. Anyway, so that's where this working with the hindrances part fits in the sort of whole picture.
And it sums it up.
Okay, so we've got time for discussion. And here I'll change this so I can see those of you in the Zoom room a little better. Oh no, I know what I have to do. I have to do this. Here we go. The floor is open. Yeah.
In regards to what you just said about the 3 realities, I guess.
3 characteristics of reality.
3 characteristics of reality. One of being inherent unsatisfactoriness.
Yes.
But wouldn't that be with respect to a perspective or a judgment or an evaluation by someone or yourself? But if there is no self to judge or evaluate,
what
How
we
can it
mean,
be
so
unsatisfactory?
first of all, what we mean by not self is there's no static, unchanging part inside of us. We're due to causes and conditions, and so we're just like we're a verb, not a noun. We're just changing all the time. There's still something here, right? um, so it's not that there's no self. There's just not a solid, unchanging self. So that's part of impermanence. So inherent and unsatisfactory, what that refers to is, first of all, some things are horrible, like accidents and sickness and death and earthquakes and all kinds of things are from the beginning not good. But other things that can be beautiful, like having a beautiful relationship, and then one person dies, before the other. That's inherently unsatisfactory. You're watching a beautiful sunset and then it completes, then it's dark. You're eating a beautiful meal and then it's over, so beautiful things are unsatisfactory because of their impermanence.
There's also everything is, quantum physics shows us this, but I mean, the Buddha saw this. And once the mind is very, very still, we will see it as well. That there's just always movement. So there's always there's friction. And when the mind gets very, 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 very still, that starts to become, you become aware that that's, the Buddha talks about it as an impingement. So we're just not sensitive enough yet. The more that you practice, actually, even our understanding of this unsatisfactoriness, the more that you practice, the more that you start to become very, it just becomes very clear to you.
And so, I mean, where our equanimity comes from is just accepting that this is reality and going, yeah, that's part of life. Instead of railing against it and being upset every time it happens, it's like, this is life. This is what life is like. And then when you can just truly accept that and just be content, then that's where the equanimity comes from. So it's not that we get more upset as our mind becomes stiller. We become more equanimous, more at peace.
More wise.
Sure. Do you want to just,
Yes.
come? This is just for the people on Zoom. If you can touch it to your chin so that they can hear you. Touch to here. Yeah.
Like
that's
this?
it.
Okay, great.
Perfect.
Can I ask a couple of clarifications? Just
Certainly.
being here for the first time.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. So the 5 techniques for dealing with distracting thoughts. I like try to. I think I generally wrote them down, but it's like try to, in not necessarily in order, but like try to distract yourself with something else.
That's number 3.
Number 3. Number 1 was
Replacing.
Replacing. And then another one, I think maybe this would have been 3 or 4, but like try to find the root of the thought.
That was number 4.
Number 4, yeah, try to find the root of the thought and address that. And then obviously 5 was sort of grit your teeth and force
Right.
it out.
And number 2 was seeing the danger in it.
Yeah, and number 2 is seeing the danger. And,
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'll leave that. Sweet. And then of the 3 characteristics of reality, so the first 2 were like inherent impermanence and inherent unpleasantness, basically. Unsatisfactory, everything. And then the third, what did you say?
This not self, like that there's not a permanent, like there's not a piece of cement inside of us that doesn't change. We're just, how we are at this moment is due to past causes and conditions, and how we are in the next moment is due to other conditions that are happening all the time. So it's just we're very fluid and changing.
Okay.
Like a river flowing,
Okay. So
Yeah.
much
we're-
more than like a mountain.
Yeah, more like a yes. So we know we're always changing.
Yeah, and that's kind of the good news, because if we're suffering, we can change it to
yes,
be more peaceful.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. All the time, every day. Okay, great. Really appreciate it.
Cool.
I have a question about what you read in the book about the person who was addicted to chess. So I know a lot of people that do Sudoku and crossword puzzles and all kinds of games as a method to kind of stimulate their mind and to have a bit of fun. And in some cases, it's a social thing where a bunch of people get together and play games. So my question is, our culture and our society sees a lot of benefit in those activities to, for intellectual stimulation and to keep the mind sharp and to socialize with other people and things like that. So at what point would the Buddhist teachings tell us that we've crossed the line from all those benefits over into the area where there's an attachment or an addiction that makes those activities harm us?
Yeah, well, I think the person in that story that I read out was saying that it started to affect first of all, she was not doing other things. She was spending hours and hours and hours. So like the time dedicated to that compared to the rest of her life was really increasing. And then it was seeping into other activities, like her meditation practice was important to her, but she couldn't meditate anymore because she was just obsessed with the next game or thinking about strategizing about games. So, yeah, I mean, as Ahimsa keeps quoting the Buddha as saying, looking, is this wholesome or unwholesome? Like, is this being harmful to me and others, or being helpful? So is it affecting your other life? Like, are you ignoring your kids because you're stuck playing some kind of a game, or not doing, not showing up to work on time, or not getting engaged in other responsibilities you have in your life, or whatever. Yeah.
And it's very individual, right? Like there's nothing inherently not good about chess. There's lots of good, actually. Yeah. I mean, probably many people here read lots of Gabor Mate. He's this physician in Vancouver who's become an author and an expert in addiction. And he's written a book about addiction. He worked for 12 years on Vancouver East Side with homeless people and many, many, many addicts. And, tons of compassion, because he himself identifies himself as an addict. But you're not going to believe what he was addicted to, especially you, Scott. He was addicted to buying classical music CDs. But he knew it was an addiction because he was doing things like, he'd be working as a doctor, he'd be seriously, like in an operation, and the Sudoku, this fancy classical music store in Vancouver, would be opening like at 11 a.m. whatever, right? And there'd be this new, and he would have some months he was spending like $8,000 on CDs, and he would be like finagling, like having someone else sew someone up from an operation so he could duck out to, and he was hiding it from his wife. He was stashing the CDs outside his house, like, so it's that, like, this classical music is a fantastic thing, but it got out of hand, clearly. So it's not the thing.
It's $8,000.
It's the attachment to the thing, not the
It's what kind of behaviors, and there are classic addictive behaviors. Yeah.
It's taking you taking in the present, constantly being in the future.
Totally.
Right.
Yeah,
So it's unable present conflict.
yeah, and he was lying to his wife and da 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 da. Yeah,
Yeah, so morality started to be affected.
yeah,
Our baseline.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, that's the thing. You know, there's lots of things that aren't um like unethical or immoral, but they're having a really negative effect on your well-being of your relationships and your evenness of mind, blah blah blah.
Any questions or comments from our Zoomers?
So, has anybody like, does anyone have a triumph story using one of these strategies? Like they've actually been doing it. It's like, wow, this particular time it worked really well. Anybody? And not all at once.
There's
Great.
something to share.
Catherine, take the mic. Yeah, great. No, it's great. Yeah.
That's as far as it goes.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I wouldn't be the only one doing this, but we're just replacing. First of all, I have to notice, and if I'm specifically going to talk about meditation, I have to notice that I'm thinking that God can do what other people do, is start planning or something. But then as soon as I notice it, then I just go into my breath, and you know, after years more adept at it now, usually I don't have to do it too many times. So the replacing the breath is my number one constant. Just noticing, okay, that's not what I'm here for. I just have to remember that, okay, I'm not here to plan. I'm not here to think about what's, or anything really. So that's replacing. And investigating, I don't know, it's like Buddhist form of meditation, but it's worked for me. So like, let's say I have anger or fear or any resentment, I wouldn't necessarily just like, oh, focus on the breath. Like I'll still feel the breath, but I'll just sit with that feeling instead of denying it. Because to me, that's an investigation of it and just allowing it to be. And then, you know, providing I'm able to, it's not too overwhelming for me at that moment. And then, you know, if I cry or if I feel the anger or whatever, and then over time it just dissipates and it's no longer taking hold of me. So that's my investigating.
Beautiful.
What happens with timing when you think of a really good idea and you don't want to forget it? You allow yourself to write it down and then go back and
To me, you know, it's magic.
Do you want to just please include the Zoom people?
Did you all hear the question that got asked?
The question
No.
was,
Okay.
or do you want me
Yeah.
to read it?
Oh, wait, no, maybe Scott can quickly.
I asked, what if you're meditating and you think of an idea that you don't want to forget?
Because Catherine had mentioned planning and sometimes.
So I never ever wrote it down because I'm trying to develop my meditation. That's the purpose of sitting there. But I think we talked about this. That's one of these evenings. Is I kind of place it out there. Like I have my own way of picturing things. So I think, okay, I'm just going to place it out in the universe, but it's really close to my work field. Sorry, this is just the way I talk and think. And then I don't typically forget it. I don't have it in my meditation, and I'll finish my meditation. And at some point later on in the day, it's like, oh yeah, and I write it down. It almost always happens. It's like saying,
Yeah, my belief is that if it's a really good idea, it's going to come back again. I just trust it's going to arise again.
Mhm. Yeah, and Ajahn Brahm says that too, that to just really trust the mind, that, you know, the more wholesome mind. And I think that Catherine said something really, really significant, and said it twice actually, that, and I often do that as well, that, you know, when the mind goes off, to remind it, like, oh, that's not what we're doing right now. You know, we're here for meditating. Oh, and Suzanne has her hand up. How
Yeah,
very
hi.
polite, Suzanne.
What I wanted to say is this isn't necessarily something I do when I'm meditating, but afterwards, not always, but I've gotten into just writing, like maybe it isn't a problem per se, but just start writing, and then things kind of clear up. So I've been doing that more lately.
Great, thanks. Okay, if there isn't anything else, we'll move to our closing. Last minute comments.
Luke.
So this is more of a comment that's like, I mean, it can apply to meditation, but also just with my experiences with like life in general, dealing with like anxiety and like intrusive and like distracting thoughts. It's kind of nice to see these steps are kind of things that I already sort of knew about, but just needed, I guess, to sort of and need to continually practice more. And, you know, I often go to like, you know, if a thought keeps coming up, distracting myself from it. And then if I keep trying to distract myself from it, you know, I realize the danger in it. So what I've learned lately is that usually if you kind of acknowledge the thought and accept it, but like, and accept the risk, but just accept it is what it is and it'll go away. Usually step 3 is good enough to, I find, just sort of like let things go. And I've often found that mostly works for me, but it's also nice to know about step 4 and 5 now, like finding the root of that thought when it's something more reoccurring. And maybe that will help you find a solution to it, or just like essentially forcing it out and stopping it because you're tired of it.
Thanks.
But I think you really, really understand something very important, which is to accept something, you know, because that resistance actually adds energy to it. It's like Aikido. Do you all know Aikido? Yeah,
Use the
pretty
energies.
amazing stuff, eh?
Okay, so we're just a couple of minutes left, so I think we'll move to our closing. So I guess this is our first Tuesday in February, because it was Cheap Tuesday today, the first February.
Yeah, everyone in Canmore knows it was Cheap Tuesday.
Okay, so the first Tuesday of the month, we end with the Brahma Vihara of metta, loving friendliness. May you be well. May you be happy. May you be peaceful. May you be loving. May no problems come to you. May no difficulties come to you. May no harm come to you. May you meet with spiritual success. May you have the patience, the strength, the courage, the determination, the inner clarity and the wisdom to meet and overcome the inevitable problems in life, to meet and overcome the inevitable difficulties in life, to meet and overcome the inevitable frustrations in life, and to meet and overcome the inevitable failures in life. May the whole of our hearts be filled with loving friendliness. May every cell of our bodies be filled with loving friendliness. May every level of our consciousness be purified by loving friendliness. May we build a healthy, happy aura of loving friendliness all around us, through which no evil thought, word, or intention, or any form of harm may penetrate, but from which loving friendliness may radiate in all directions. And may we be protected. May the merit of our practice be shared with all sentient beings, named and unnamed. Lise, Blair, Agnes, Tim, Kelly, Mr. Fletcher. May all beings be well and happy. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.